always depends on the, center lines. Now, what's the tool? Go to the architecture headline, and then here you can see grid. What we usually call center line is called grid in Revit. So we can find it in architecture headline and also in structure headline. It's not different, it's just repeating. Right? Grid is a 2.5D object. What does it mean? I mean, when you draw it in one view, it can be seen in other views as well, except in 3D. That's why we don't call it 3D, but we call it 2.5D. So it's not different in which of these levels you draw it. For example, I go to level 2, TOB. I start drawing grid. The shortcut is GR. I can use both. Then I draw the first one here. It's drawn actually automatically. The number 1 also is put automatically. I can put the second one. After I draw it, I click on the distance and I'll change it. I can draw them one by one. I can select them and then click multiple and do them one by one, just like you can see. I can also array, right? Select one of them and it should be second. For example, 5. Point. If you array, definitely after that, the objects are put into a group except this one. Select them and ungroup, right? It will be a trouble. So if you're using array for designing the grids, you need to ungroup them after that. So we can control the dimensions, the sizes by using copy, array, and all that, Now, we do the opposite side, right? I draw these. Now, when you draw this, it does not know that the direction has changed, so it says 7. Now you're going to have to change the name, click it, and say, for example, it's A. Now it understands what is going on. Next one will be B, next one will be C, and the same thing will continue. So you can again copy, you can do them one by one. Again, the same thing. So this is everything about designing, but a very important point here, I've always said that the 0 of the project should be in a specific spot and a constant spot. And in big projects, it's already told you officially that this is the 0 spot and all the groups will work based on that. And if you remember one of the projects, where the center lines had crossed, we considered it to be 0. Now, in phase 2, at first the structure is prepared and then the other groups will import it and start working on it. Therefore, we can say that the structural file recognizes the 0 spot. But how? Just like I said, usually where 2 center lines are crossed is known to be the 0 spot of the project. So after drawing the grid, you're gonna have to choose where that is. For example, A and 1 or anywhere else. You're gonna move that spot into the 0 of the Revit and then start modeling. Remember that after the work is finished, when you want to move the entire project into 0, you have a very difficult thing to do. Therefore, from the very beginning, move these grids into 0. But how? It's very easy. Go to the site plan, because here you can easily see the 0. Then select all of the grids, and just by using Shift, you're gonna have to export this. And then, very simple, click Move. Everywhere you want, for example, these 2, you can just move them to 0 spot. Just like that. This might seem easy, but this is these 2. Using Shift. How? It's very grids into 0. But how? It's very easy. Go to the site plan, because here you can easily see the 0. Then select all of the grids, and just by using Shift, you're gonna have to export this. And then, very simple, click Move. Everywhere you want, for example, these 2, you can just move them to 0 spot. Just like that. This might seem easy, but this is the first step that if you don't do it, right, you will get into a big problem. So at first do it, and then move the specific spot into 0. Let me tell you some points. I've seen many people do something weird, which is, for example, they select this, and then they say that, for example, the distance from here, I want it to be 5. Then they say that I want this distance to be 5 too. So again, it clicks and changes it to 5, but it doesn't fix. It's not fixed, right? If you want this distance to become 5, you need to select this one so that this one is moved and it becomes 5. So be careful about this. You cannot change the numbers of both sides of the center line. The second thing is that, for example, I delete this, right? What, number 6, I delete it. And then I draw it again. For example, tomorrow, it's tomorrow, and I draw it again. Don't believe that if you delete one and then draw it back, it will be the same. No, it will look at the last one and it will name it. So you have to change the name annually because it's not changed automatically. It's not understood, let's say. If you have a gap somewhere and you need to draw this, for example, so close to this one, you can just click it and then click this spark. Then move it a bit, and also this one, click the spark and then move it, right? You can also change the name like that, right? In this way, you can actually fix the places that there's a gap, you know. Well, the distance between these two, for example, is 30 centimeters. It's a bit much. I'll change it to 20. Well, the second point, if you draw a grid slanted like that, you know, not straight, it will not be seen in the view. If you draw it straightly, it will be seen. If it's actually straight, which is called H, but this one is G, it will be seen. But the G here, just like you can see, is not seen, which makes sense, I think. Because why would we see a slanted grid? Why would you see that? We don't need to see it. But sometimes your project manager insists on the fact that we need to see this in the view. So in these situations, you're going to have to use this technique. Let me delete it. I'll click grid from here. There's an option called multi-segment here, right? You can have multi-segments, segments grids. So click it and draw that slanted grid with straight end, right? The end of it, the head of it, let's say, must be straight. That will cause you to see it in the view. So this is the technique so that you can see slanted grids in the view. Let me delete them. Well, now answer my question. Pay attention to my questions. I go to the view and I come to this conclusion that I have another level. So I pick it up and I draw it as level 4. For example, I have a basement 2, so I draw this level 2 as level 0, right? I draw one here, level 4, and I also draw one here as the basement, and I call it level 0, for example, right? When I go to level 0 or level 4, I cannot see the grid. Why? The reason is that in this new level, what's the reason that we don't see in grids in these new levels? Well, when you enter the view, you can guess the reason. Why is it? That's right, because the grids do not cross those levels. So always have this in your minds. If the grids do not cross our levels, they will not be seen in those levels. For example, here, I can just hold them and drag them up, and then they crossed 4. Now I can see them, but they're still not in 0. So again, I can select them and drag them until they cross 0, and we will be able to see them, right? You should always do this in the opposite side too. For example, now you can just we just have the numbers. Then we will do the same thing for the letters too. We can also use the maximized 3D extents technique. It's the same. So remember that when the grids are not seen in one of the levels, right? Remember, either they have not crossed the levels, which you can check in the view, or they're hidden. It will not be except these two. The next point is about, if you select your grids, you might see a lock and then you might see a 3D here. I want to tell you what these are, right? I've already talked about this subject in the levels. Let's just have a review. If it's locked, right, when you move one of these grids, all of them are moved, just like you can see. If you open it, just that grid will be moved. This is what it is about the lock. But what about 3D? When it is 3D and you move it, you will see the effect in other levels. But when you change it into 2D and you move it, not only will it be moved alone, I mean the lock will automatically be opened, it will not affect the other levels. Right, just it changes in this level, in this view actually. And this is not that good thing. Why would we want to change the rhythm, right? It's useful sometimes, we will go for it. Or, for example, in any reason, you want to have this head here too. So you can use this, let's say, square, and both of these sides have the heads. So you can manage them in this way, right? For example, I've played the heads of these two. Now I go to the next level and I see that they haven't changed. I go to this plan and I see they haven't changed. So there's a technique that we can move the graphical property, the graphical settings of the grids from one level to another. How? Well, select it first, then click Propagate Extent. Right, now, these settings, it asks us which of these levels we want it to be moved to. For example, I say that TOP level 2, right, and also TOS level 3, for example. Let's check it out. You see it? It's moved. So, if there is a graphical settings you want in other levels, you can use the Propagate Extents, and which appears after you select your grid. You can use this object, you can use this tool actually. So let me make them a bit organized, it's a bit disorganized. After I drew the grid, what it is in reality is to draw the foundation, but in Revit, we'd better draw the columns first, it's easier.